decipher or sort that out? That's a great question. I don't pretend to have the answers, but I think we've got to be careful about that average middle-of-the-road employee. And part of it goes back to positive feedback to me, helping extract and find out what's good about them, reinforcing that, and continue to get more of that performance and productivity, and trying to, sounds like the psychologist in me saying, rather than too much of the negative reinforcement, trying to help with a lot of positive to extinguish the negative that way, try to reinforce what they're doing well and to get more of that. But to me, again, human behavior is pretty complex. How long does that take? And how much time do you have to give them? Your supervisors, your department heads, you teach, research, whatever. How much time do you have to help this person get there? Tough call. And I think the only thing that you and I can be faulted on is if we don't try to help them find how to get there and encourage them to do that. Ultimately, if they're good and they stay at good, but I've tried, I don't think I have to feel like I failed with that person to make them better. I'm going to accept full responsibility, but I do if I didn't at least try to help find a plan of action or a direction to go. And then I need to be careful about value judgments that good is bad or that average is bad. We don't like that word. We don't like the center of the bell-shaped curve, a lot of us, We like, dude, don't put me there. I'm over here for sure, But a lot of us aren't, for whatever reason. Any other comments on this question? A great question.
Well, I think as employee should know how their evaluation is going to go before they even get there to get their raise.
Exactly. Great point. You can talk about the employee coming in and that's right. There shouldn't be many surprises, should there?
They do not know if if they need improvement, they're going to know they need improvement.
Yeah.
It should be a shock.
That's a great philosophical tenet, I think. There shouldn't be many surprises in appraisal. And particularly because of the formative part that you've been participating within along, you shouldn't shock them. Short of something that's dishonest or highly unethical, somebody been stealing money out of Tom's till over there or something, you may surprise them with that if you caught them, but there aren't many things that they should be surprised with. You should have nabbed them along the way and helped them. You should have avoided gunny sacking. They should know what's coming, which also puts them more at ease and ready for the process rather than, oh no, here comes the judge. I'm going to get it done. Good point. Other comments here before we move on? The intent of the service agreement in your handout is an item. Let's say you and that person were struggling a little bit with some elements that just didn't seem to be clear, just weren't working out. One way to tackle this might be this suggestion that somebody offered of a service agreement in which you as a supervisor and supervisee agreed to certain tenets, you both signed it and dated it. And what is this, really? It's kind of a contracting or a commitment that I'm going to do something about it. Look at one. As your supervisor, I agree to explain thoroughly, to give you a written copy of the duties and the performance standards expected in each. That's what, as a supervisor, I agree to do. And as my employee, you're saying I agree to study what is expected and ask you for information at any time I do not understand what is expected. And all of those are kind of correlative elements of agreement and cooperativeness about striking. Those 6 could be 15, they could be different, 6 or 5. It's an approach to striking a working agreement between boss and supervisee, employer, employee, a way to help. By the way, if you want to look at this on the negative side, it can be a helpful instrument later if that person wasn't getting the job done. That's secondary for having it, by the way, I think, but it could be important. More important would be to have these agreements in which you set these things out. And this is just a plan that you might consider. Your 6 or 10 or 12 or 15 could be very different, but it might have some help.
Yeah, how widely is that used on the campus?
Service agreement?
Is it routinely used in any of the colleges or departments?
I tell you what, Larry, I can't say that I'm aware of it routinely being used in the academic units. I can say I'm aware of it being used fairly often in some of the auxiliary and support areas. I do see that some in there. I'm sure there's a lot that I don't know about, but I have seen it mostly in areas where there are some strains in the department, strains between 2 people, in which it was almost like, let's take this covenant, we will get through this.
Used as an exception then more than
Yes, I'd say that generally, yeah, yeah. Good question. I'm not going to go into quite as much depth as I might with the 1 minute manager, but you've got a handout, you probably can't see it on my small overhead here, but Blanchard and Johnson have an interesting approach to goal setting and planning called the 1 minute manager, and it all stems from 1 minute praisings, 1 minute goal setting, and 1 minute reprimands. And their little model I've included for you, and I'm sure your bookstore has the book, or nowadays it's been out there so long you can buy them cheaper now. They're finally down in circulation, I think. But like I said earlier, it ticks me off that these guys wrote this down rather than you and myself, because we all know this stuff. They're making the money, we didn't. They say basically this: you ought to be able, and where does this fit? You might see it in performance appraisal. Where this fits in my mind is a way of looking at your employees, helping challenge them, helping them set goals, helping them look ahead, and if they're doing well, giving them praising, if they're doing poorly, giving them reprimands, and then moving on. That's bottom line what Blanchard and Johnson say. They say, looking at the chart, if you look at set your goals. They say you and I ought to be able to set our goals, at least for the year, in 250 words or less on 1 page. And if you're getting in a short story, they'd say you're becoming too verbose, you're wasting time, paper, and effort. They're contingent. Your goals ought to be able to put on 1 sheet of paper, 250 words or less, shared, supervisor and supervisee, and then you move into this grid from which, as you achieve goals on the left-hand side, you win. And so they say, if you're succeeding on that goal and you win, you receive praising. And their whole issue is about our society and how rushed we are, and that if you're succinct and to the point, you can get your message across and move on in praisings or reprimands in an efficient way. Hence the notion of the 1 minute manager. So they say 1 minute praisings are praise the behavior with true feelings. They did something well. Tom's accountant got the report in on time. He says, "Great job, Sally. You got the report in on time. I really appreciate you." True feeling. He further might say, "If Sally got the report in yesterday, tell her yesterday or today at the latest. Don't tell her a month later. I appreciate your report. Do it soon. Time proximity is important." They say, "Be specific. That specific particular report was great. I appreciate that. It was accurate. Tell the person what they did right, how you feel about it. Encourage the person with true feelings." And Blanchard and Johnson say one way of sending people positive regard, they use the example of shaking hands to kind of consummate the deal, if you would, or to send them off on that. And you'll notice the counter to this on 1 minute reprimands. They got to this goal. Tom's accountant didn't finish the report. He says, "Hey, Sally, you need to get that in on time. You're causing other budgetary problems or allocation difficulties." He needs to be specific. He does it in prompt time. He tells the person what they did wrong. Tom would have said also, the way I feel about this is you're making us look bad, you're hurting other people getting payroll in on time or whatever. Get specific. Then you encourage the person with true feelings. And again, they say shake hands or send them on their way. The point I'm trying to get at with this is they say, and it's very individual, what they say is that the handshake or the pat on the back, and I don't mean in a condescending or demeaning way, reinforces in 9 out of 10 human transactions what you see, if you have that rapport with them. And so some person who you can pat on the back with actually say, as you make a praising or reprimand, their point is there's a dimension there that they think of reinforcement that accompanies the verbal word. So, we'll say for a minute, Kim was my accountant, and I'm in Tom's perspective. And if I said, "Hey, Kim, great job, I appreciate what you did. You got it in on time, you're helping us all." A way of reinforcing that is with a handshake or a pat on the back that says, "Thanks, I mean it, I appreciate it." And the other side of the coin is after I've corrected him, if he did it wrong, they say, "You got to get better, got to be more timely, but I appreciate you and what you're doing." You still reinforce it, but physical contact. And all I'm going to say about that, heaven forbid, in this day of touching and in this day of sexual harassment, I just suggest you know who it is you're touching and the message you're giving. Okay? And there are some sex lines and barriers, but I know Dana well enough over there because she and I work kind of in a similar area of housing. I do know with her as a female, that when I shook her hand or patted her on the back or something like that, she would accept that because of us knowing each other in the way I intended. But there's probably another female in here that I've not met that if I approach or do that, she's going to say, you need to talk to my attorney. Or I didn't like that message you gave me. The point I'm getting at is they believe, and I really agree with them, that if you got the right rapport and relationship with the person, the physical encounter, and being a realist here, I mean, we're talking about handshake or pat on the back or something, reinforces it. And don't trivialize that to be of no value. That's what Blanchard and Johnson would say. You may disagree with that, but I make that point from them. And then, either way, folks, you get to here where they perceive a success or where they've had a failing, they go back in the loop. Either if they've succeeded to new goals, if they fail, they're back to the same goal that they didn't attain. And Tom's going to say, you got to get that report done more timely next month. That's your goal. So Blanchard and Johnson have a way of thinking about it in a concise, efficient way. And Sharon, I don't know if you all have that kind of in your resource library or anything, but it might be something for the department people to consider as a simple, easy way to plan and look ahead and give feedback. And they emphasize the brevity of it. And folks, they say, it's like Yogi Berra said, it ain't over till it's over. But, and Samson says, when it's over, it is finally over. So, what I mean by that is once you finish that reprimand, that ought to be history. Don't keep dredging that back up with them later. Don't keep dangling it, saying, I've got you on my string. Remember that time you failed and sinned over here? I'm going to hold you accountable for that, Don't get caught in that. So Blanchard and Johnson, I recommend that as a tool that might be of some help. And the last ones that I had there for you, the nonverbals. Take 30 seconds just to peruse that. Negative nonverbal behaviors in those 5 areas. Look at them. Facial expressions of appearance, body posture, vocal behaviors, environmental influences, distracting gestures and mannerisms. You know, if it's been a while since you had basic psychology, or if you hadn't thought about the way you come across people non-verbally, here's a little cue list that might help you think about what message do I give to people? What messages do I relay to people in a non-verbal sense, and how important does that happen to be? And look at that in these 30 seconds. Contrast it to the positive non-verbals in those 5 areas, facial expression, appearance, and so forth. You just need to know yourself a little bit, because what we're doing, folks, is in appraisal is really a skill, I think, that we develop. I don't think this is innate, folks. This is a skill, I think, that we develop as we work with people over time. And most of us, I hope, are still on the road, rather than thinking, oh, yeah, Samson doesn't know much. I'd already heard that, but he just reinforced that today because I've already arrived. Well, I hope that you're not in that mentality as much as thinking, yeah, I haven't thought about that for a while. Or, yeah, I do know I don't speak loudly enough. Or maybe I do know I'm dominating. Or maybe I need to do some things to change, if I can, the way I come across to some people. And the other 2 items that are part of the handout are just the Marilyn Michael, the 101 ways to show you care about that employee or any person. It's a little broader than just employees, as you see in the bibliography. Sure, I'll pause now just for a couple of brief moments of reflection here and sharing. What other questions or issues are on your mind? By the way, she asked me to tell you all, you know, she didn't ask me to tell you this, but I'll tell you this, and I'll tell you what she asked me to tell you. An expert, by my definition, is somebody who's more than 20 miles from home. So that's where I fit. You know, I got some guy comes over from Stillwater Day, even has his own driver. You know, that's pretty impressive. Nobody ever drives me anywhere. So I even have or an expert, also I've been told, is a drip under pressure. That's the definition of that. I don't have the answers in this area. It's complex, and it's really a skill-building thing for each of us over our life if we're going to have anybody that reports to us. Now, if you're one of those people in the box of the world don't have anybody report to you, you got to be thankful. Hey, your job is already easy. But you're not always going to be there, probably. You're going to have somebody reporting to you, which means you're going to have and work on those skills. My aim of the day was to be your conscience for a little while, make you think about some things that practically a lot of you know, and to give you a chance to reflect on some things maybe you or I need to work on. And as you get into this effort, she asked me to remind you that just like I'm not the local expert on this, the other element of this is you all are kind of starting down a new track also. And she had shared with me before I came the instruments available that are going to be utilized, I guess, with the faculty, with the professional staff, and the classified. And she does have samples or copies of those that have been developed for you to see if you'd like to look at those. I see this process as evolving, even in terms of the instrument, rather than ever having arrived, but you got to have people who will dedicate some time to it. And to me, as you can tell, it's fairly important because these are the things at which people get jobs or promotion or get salary increases or don't, or which they have jobs or don't. So they're fairly important. It's not a little trivialized couple of moments, I think, with people. With that, before I say adios, any other questions you want to raise today or observations, comments, things that you want to dabble in a little bit? I'm sorry we've run a little bit close. I apologize for being a little bit late. And really, I'm the one who lost out because I had lunch plan with all these famous people at OSU Okmulgee. Now, this you're going to let me off easy. I appreciate both renewing a few friendships and acquaintances that I have over here. And Amjad and I would have a standing invite. We'd sure like to get over our place sometime, so feel free to come over. And if you want to follow up on some of this stuff again in the future, I'd be glad to help with that. Or if you want to come to our place and do some things over there, or just come and visit. I'd really welcome you all at Stillwater campus. I know some of you are there more than we want to be, I'm sure. But the others of you who don't get there often, I hope you'll come over. Or if we can help sometime with folks that you're sending over, that's our job, just like I expect you to help me if I'm going to refer some students to you. I hope that we can mutually work on this. With that, Sharon, they let me off easy. They didn't.
Sure did.
So let me turn it back to you. I appreciate your attention and your time.
I don't have anything to say other than thank you for coming and your attention, and everybody's still awake and gives you time to get back to your office. I do have copies of all 3 forms. I know there's some folks in here that don't